The sound of knuckles smashing against bone is different in real life. In the movies, it's always a clean, satisfying crack. But when my fist connected with Brad's face, there was a sickening crunch, followed by a wet gasp as he crumpled to the floor. Emma screamed my name, but it barely registered. My breath came hard and fast, my vision tunneling as I loomed over the bastard, clutching his jaw like it was about to fall off. His pants were still around his ankles. Pathetic. My wife, half-dressed and wide-eyed, grabbed my arm, nails digging into my skin. "Ethan, what the hell is wrong with you?" "What's wrong with me?" That snapped something loose inside me. A dark laugh clawed its way up my throat as I yanked my arm free, stepping back like her touch burned. The nerve. The absolute audacity to look at me like I was the one who had just shattered our marriage. Brad groaned, rolling onto his side, eyes wild like a trapped rat. "Jesus Christ, man, you broke my A." I grabbed the collar of his overpriced shirt and yanked him up so we were face to face. His breath reeked of whiskey and desperation. "If you ever set foot near my wife again, I swear to God, you'll leave an AF******************************************************** Emma's voice rose an octave. "Are you insane? Let him go." For a second, I considered it. Then I thought about the way I found them, his hands on her, his body pressed against hers, her lips parted just enough to let him think he had her. Maybe he did. The thought made my stomach churn. With a hard shove, I let him drop like the worthless piece of trash he was. He scrambled backward, half-naked and humiliated, before stumbling to his feet and yanking up his pants. "You're out of your damn mind," he spat, wincing as he wiped the blood from his mouth. I took a step forward and he nearly tripped over himself trying to reach the door. He didn't look back. The second he was gone, silence slammed into the room like a freight train. The only sound was Emma's breathing, heavy and uneven. Not with guilt, not with remorse. With anger. "You were so **********ing dramatic," she scoffed, smoothing down her rumpled skirt like nothing had happened. A bitter laugh bubbled up before I could stop it. "That's what you have to say? I just caught you cheating and that's your reaction." She crossed her arms, cocking her hip. "You're acting like I murdered someone." "It's not a big deal." My pulse pounded in my skull. "Not a big deal?" The words tasted like acid. "Are you out of your mind?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, Ethan. You've been so boring lately. All you do is work and complain. I just wanted some fun." "God, you're so dramatic." Dramatic? That word again. Like I was the one in the wrong. Like she hadn't just thrown our marriage in a dumpster and set it on fire. "You're unbelievable." She scoffed, turning toward the kitchen like we were in the middle of some petty argument over dinner plans. "Whatever. You need to chill." I watched her, standing there with not a single trace of guilt, and something inside me snapped. This wasn't the woman I married. That woman? She would have fought for us. She would have apologized, cried, begged for forgiveness. But this? This was someone I didn't even recognize. A stranger. And for the first time since I walked through that door, I realized the truth. This marriage was already over. Emma thought she had me backed into a corner. She thought I'd panic, get defensive, let her drag me through the mud. What she didn't realize was I was about to flip the whole game on her. Ryan and I spent the next morning gathering everything. Texts, emails, photos, and most importantly, the security footage. The whole damn video of her getting cozy with Brad in my kitchen, time-stamped, crystal clear. Ryan whistled, scrolling through the folder on my laptop. "Man, you're holding a nuke." I leaned back, fingers tapping against my mug. And I'm about to drop it. The first step was the lawyer. Emma expected me to roll over to take the abuse, but she wasn't expecting me to fight back. When I walked into my attorney's office with a folder full of proof, I saw the exact moment he realized this wasn't going to be a standard divorce case. "You have video evidence?" Mr. Calloway asked, adjusting his glasses. I nodded. "And a paper trail. She's been cheating for months, lying, manipulating, and now she's trying to frame me for abuse." He clicked his pen. "Well, Mr. Carter, I hope your wife enjoys surprises because I'm about to serve her the biggest one of her life." That afternoon, I sent Emma a text. "Ethan, we need to talk." She responded in less than a minute. "Emma, finally. You ready to stop being a baby about this?" I smirked. "Ethan, meet me at the house in an hour." I needed to see her face when her world came crashing down. She showed up acting like she had already won. Arms crossed, weight shifted onto one hip, an expression that screamed arrogance. "I was wondering when you'd stop sulking," she said, stepping inside. "So, what, you finally came to your senses? Realized you overreacted?" I leaned against the counter, studying her. "Not exactly." Her eyes narrowed. "Then what the hell are we doing here?" I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. She froze. There, playing in full HD, was her and Brad. In my house. On my F***ing kitchen counter. Her face drained of color. Where did you get that? Security cameras, I said casually, watching the panic bloom in her eyes. Turns out, I never actually disabled them. She swallowed hard. You can't use that in court. I arched an eyebrow. Who said anything about court? Her lip trembled just for a second before she squared her shoulders. So what, Ethan? You're just gonna blackmail me? I laughed. Laughed right in her F***ing face. Blackmail? I said, shaking my head. Oh, Emma. You still don't get it. I set my phone down, crossed my arms. See, this isn't about leverage. This isn't about getting even. This is about burning your whole F***ing house of lies to the ground. Her breathing was shallow now. You wouldn't. I tilted my head. Wouldn't I? She took a step back. What do you want? I let her squirm for a moment before answering. Drop the charges. Today. Call the police, tell them you lied. Her mouth opened, then closed. I smiled coldly. And after that? We're getting a divorce. You don't get a cent. She shook her head rapidly. No. No F***ing way. I leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. Do it or I send this video to your whole damn family. Your boss. Hell, I might even send it to Brad's wife. Her face went sheet white. Yeah. She forgot I knew about that little detail, huh? She let out a shaky breath. You wouldn't ruin me like that. I smirked. I would. And I will. For the first time, Emma looked scared. Not angry. Not defiant. Just pure, sinking fear. She knew she lost. Fine, she spat. I'll drop the charges. And? Her nostrils flared. And I'll sign the F***ing divorce papers. I stepped back, crossing my arms. Smart girl. She spun on her heel, yanking out her phone. I watched as she made the call, voice trembling as she told the police she had misunderstood the situation, that she was emotional and had overreacted. And just like that, the tables turned. She hung up, fists clenched. Happy now? I exhaled slowly, like I was actually thinking about it. Then, with a smirk, I said, getting there. Emma stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. Ryan, who had been waiting outside, poked his head in. That sounded violent. I grinned, tossing him my phone. She folded. Ryan scrolled through the messages. His eyebrows shot up. Holy ***. You actually did it. I cracked my neck. Damn right I did. For the first time in weeks, I felt free. But something told me Emma wasn't done yet. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. The charges were dropped, the divorce was in motion, and Emma? She was out of moves. Or so I thought. Ryan and I grabbed drinks that night, celebrating, laughing, talking about all the ways Emma had it up. It felt good to let go. Until I got the text. Emma, you think you've won? I stared at the screen, pulse ticking in my jaw. Ryan glanced over. What now? I turned the phone so he could see. He read the message, snorted. She's just pissed she lost. Ignore it. I wanted to. I really did. But something felt off. Emma never admitted defeat. I typed back. Ethan, you're done, Emma. Move on. She responded instantly. Emma, oh sweetheart. You have no idea what's coming. A chill ran down my spine. Ryan frowned. You think she's bluffing? I wasn't sure. But I had a really bad feeling. The next morning, I found out exactly what she meant. It started with a phone call from my job. Mr. Carter, we need to talk. I sat up in bed, rubbing my temple. What's going on? A sigh on the other end. We received a disturbing complaint about you. HR is launching an investigation. I blinked. A complaint? From who? A pause. Then, we can't disclose that. I already knew. Emma. I ended the call, heart pounding. She wasn't done. Not even close. Within the next few hours, I got more bad news. My bank account? Frozen because someone tried to claim fraud on our joint assets. My credit card? Maxed out on purchases I never made. And the worst part? I had a lawyer, but so did Emma. And hers was just as dirty as she was. Ryan and I sat in my living room, staring at the wreckage of my life. She's trying to ***ing ruin you, he said, voice tight. I let out a humorless laugh. Yeah. No ***. He leaned forward. So what do we do? I took a slow breath. We end this. Permanently. Ryan smirked. Now we're talking. First, I met with my lawyer. I need everything locked down, I told Calloway. Accounts, assets, anything she can touch. He nodded. Already on it. But you should know Emma's fighting for spousal support. I clenched my jaw. She's not getting a damn cent. Calloway smirked. That's what I like to hear. Next, I went after her reputation. It was time to make Emma Carter the most hated woman in town. Ryan and I spent the next 12 hours sending the footage anonymously, of course, to everyone that mattered. Her boss. Her family. Her friends. And Brad? Oh, I made sure his wife got a front row seat to the sh*** show. By the next morning, Emma's world was on fire. Her boss fired her. Brad's wife threw him out. Her family stopped answering her calls. And when she showed up at my house screaming, I just smiled. She was done. Checkmate. When I got her text telling me you think you've won, for a moment, doubt flashed through my mind. But I knew this wasn't over. Emma had always been toxic, and even after I'd thrown a couple of surprises her way with the video, she still had a few cards left up her sleeve. The problem was that now she was playing her game and I was prepared to end it. Ryan and I sat in the bar, me holding my beer, drinking down each sip, trying to feel some relief. Ryan, it seemed, was much more at ease than I was. He started enjoying this situation. Well, at least he's not on your side anymore, he said, glancing at my texts. I just stared at my phone screen. But there was no time to relax. I didn't know how this next round would play out. I knew she hadn't given up. Not yet. For all these years, we'd been playing a game. Who could leave more pain behind? Who could show more cruelty? I thought we'd reached the end, but as I read her text again, something in me stirred. No, this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of a new chapter. I typed out a quick response, but before I could press send, my phone buzzed again. Emma, you have no idea what's coming. A chill ran down my spine as I read those words. There was a part of me that felt unease. I tried to shake it off. She's bluffing, I muttered under my breath. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Bluffing? Man, she's got nothing left. You've already taken the upper hand. You're fine. But my gut told me otherwise. Emma never admitted defeat. She was dangerous. And I wouldn't be caught off guard again. I leaned back in my chair, tapping my fingers on the table, and then typed back with as much calm as I could muster. Ethan, you're done, Emma. Move on. I hit send, watching the dots appear as she typed her response. Emma, oh sweetheart. You have no idea what's coming. Her words echoed in my head like a warning bell. A warning I couldn't ignore. The next morning, the storm started. It began with a phone call from work. Mr. Carter, we need to talk. I rubbed my temple, still groggy from a restless night. What's going on? A sigh on the other end. We've received a disturbing complaint about you. HR is launching an investigation. I sat up in bed, fully awake now. A complaint? From who? The pause was long enough to tell me everything I needed to know. Sorry, but we can't disclose that. I ended the call knowing the answer already. Emma. She wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Within hours, the other bombshells started falling. My bank account? Frozen. Someone had tried to file a fraud claim on our joint assets. My credit card? Maxed out on purchases I never made. And the worst part? I had a lawyer, but so did Emma. And her lawyer? Just as dirty as she was. Ryan and I sat in my living room staring at the mess my life had become. She's trying to *****ing ruin you, he said, his voice tight. I let out a humorless laugh. Yeah. No ****. He leaned forward, his tone hardening. So what do we do? I exhaled slowly, running my hand over my face. We end this. Permanently. Ryan smirked. Now we're talking. The first thing I did was meet with my lawyer. I need everything locked down, I told Calloway. Accounts, assets, anything she can touch. He nodded, a confident gleam in his eye. Already on it. But you should know Emma's fighting for spousal support. I clenched my jaw. She's not getting a damn cent. Calloway smirked, leaning back in his chair. That's what I like to hear. Next, I decided it was time to go after her reputation. It was time to make Emma Carter the most hated woman in town. Ryan and I spent the next 12 hours sending the footage anonymously, of course, to everyone who mattered. Her boss. Her family. Her friends. And Brad? I made sure his wife got a front row seat to the sh*** show. By the next morning, Emma's world was in flames. Her boss fired her. Brad's wife threw him out. Her family stopped answering her calls. When she showed up at my house screaming, I just smiled. She was done. Checkmate. Emma stood on my porch, shaking with rage. Her makeup was smudged, her hair a mess. She looked nothing like the arrogant woman who had strutted in here days ago, convinced she had me trapped. Yeah? She was the one gasping for air. You think this is funny? She spat, jabbing a finger at my chest. You think you can just ruin my life and get away with it? I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Her nostrils flared. You had no right to, eh? I laughed, shaking my head. No right? You lied to the police. You tried to get me fired. You tried to bleed me dry. And now you want to cry about consequences. She clenched her fists so hard her knuckles turned white. You went too far. I arched an eyebrow. Too far? UF ************ your boss in my house, Emma. She flinched. For the first time, she had no comeback. You're done, I said coldly. No money. No reputation. No job. You're gonna spend the rest of your life explaining why you got caught on video screwing a married man while your husband was working to pay your bills. Her lip trembled. Now get off my porch. She hesitated, one last attempt at control, at manipulation, but I didn't move. I just stared her down, waiting. And then? She broke. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No pity. No guilt. Just the satisfaction of finally being free. She turned and walked away. No screaming. No parting shot. Just silence. And that was the most satisfying sound of all. The days after Emma's departure were strangely quiet. I'd expected more chaos, more drama, but there was nothing. Just emptiness. The aftermath of a war had left me standing alone, but I wasn't broken. No, I was stronger than ever, and the feeling of finally being free from her grasp was liberating. I thought I'd be relieved, but the silence? It felt like a vacuum, sucking everything out of me. No more games. No more back and forth. Just an eerie calm, like waiting for a storm that wasn't going to come. Ryan had been by my side every step of the way. He'd always been the guy who'd have my back, even when things seemed hopeless. He was at the bar again that night, the usual place where we met to talk strategy, drink away our frustrations, and celebrate our victories. I sat across from him, the light from the neon signs casting shadows on the table. We'd been here countless times, but tonight something felt different. A kind of emptiness lingered in the air, something I couldn't shake. You good? Ryan asked, noticing my silence. I looked at my drink, swirling it in my glass. Yeah, just thinking. About what? About how I thought I'd feel better after all this. I took a long sip, letting the bitter taste fill my senses. But I don't. Ryan leaned forward, his brow furrowed. You're not the same guy you were a few weeks ago. You're calmer. More collected. You've won. I shook my head slowly. Winning doesn't feel like winning, you know? Trust me, he said with a grin. You've got the freedom now to do whatever the hell you want. No more strings attached. That's a win. I didn't know if I agreed with him. I wanted to believe that I'd finally cut all the ties that bound me to Emma, but the truth was, some part of me deep down missed the chaos. The game. The thrill of outsmarting her. Even though it was toxic, it had been my life for so long that now, without it, I was left wondering what came next. The thought gnawed at me, and I couldn't shake it. I'd been so focused on taking Emma down that I hadn't considered what would happen once I did. What would I do with all this new freedom? Where would my focus go now? That night, as I sat in my apartment, staring at the empty walls, a message flashed on my phone. It was from an unknown number. Unknown, I know what you did. The words made my stomach drop. I stared at the screen, trying to process what it meant. Who the hell was this? I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I waited, watching the message linger. The dots showed up, then disappeared, then reappeared. Whoever it was, they were typing something else. Finally, the next message came through. Unknown, you've made a powerful enemy. This isn't over. Not yet. My pulse quickened. Was this Emma? Or someone else who had come into the picture? I didn't know. But one thing was clear, I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went. I tried to shrug it off. It could be anyone, another desperate person trying to get my attention. But I couldn't deny the knot in my stomach, the creeping suspicion that Emma wasn't the only one who'd been playing me. The next morning, I met with my lawyer, Calloway, to discuss the new threat. They could be bluffing, Calloway said, his voice steady as always. But we can't afford to take chances. I'll have my team look into it, see who's behind it. I nodded, though the unease in my gut refused to subside. What if it's Emma? Or someone connected to her? Calloway narrowed his eyes. We're prepared for that. We've locked everything down, and if she comes after you again, we'll hit back harder. No one's going to hurt you, Ethan. The confidence in his words was meant to reassure me, but deep down, I knew better. If there was one thing I had learned through this mess, it was that people like Emma didn't back down easily. And if she had an ally, someone pulling the strings behind the scenes, I needed to be ready for whatever came next. Later that day, I met with Ryan again, needing to clear my head. He didn't waste any time jumping straight into the topic. So he began, taking a sip of his beer. What's the plan now? You've taken down Emma. You've got the upper hand. Time to enjoy the spoils, right? I exhaled sharply, leaning back in my chair. It's not over. Someone's out there and I don't know who it is yet. They're threatening me. This isn't just some random person. Ryan paused. You're serious? Dead serious, I replied, my eyes narrowing. Whoever it is, they know about Emma. And they know what I did to her. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation sinking in. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It wasn't about me getting back at Emma. It was about staying ahead of a new threat, someone who was more dangerous than I realized. You need to stay sharp, Ryan said finally. We don't know who this is, but we know they're not gonna back off. You've made enemies and some of them are playing the long game. I nodded. I know. And I'm not about to let anyone get the drop on me. Ryan's smile was tight. Good. Let's make sure they regret ever coming after you. As we left the bar, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking straight into another fight. But this time I wasn't going to let anyone take me down. I was done being the pawn in someone else's game. Now I was in control. The next few days passed in a blur of tension and anticipation. The message I'd received still gnawed at me, refusing to let go. Whoever had sent it knew too much, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized how little I knew about the web Emma had woven around me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming. A storm was brewing, and I was standing in the eye of it, waiting for the first sign of trouble. Ryan could see it too. He'd been by my side throughout this entire mess, but now he was more concerned than I'd ever seen him. We met up again, just like we had so many times before, but this time the mood was different. We weren't talking about celebrating anymore. We were strategizing, preparing for whatever was coming next. You still haven't heard anything? Ryan asked, tapping his fingers on the table as he stared at me. Nope, I replied, rubbing my eyes. I'm still waiting. Whoever this is, they're playing it cool, which makes them dangerous. Ryan leaned back in his chair, studying me carefully. You've got a hell of a target on your back now. Emma's not the type to just walk away quietly. I know, I said, feeling the weight of those words. But this is different. This feels like something bigger. I don't know who's pulling the strings, but I'm starting to think it's not just her. Ryan gave me a knowing look. You're right. This whole thing's been a lot more complicated than we first thought. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to push past the knot of unease that had settled in my chest. I've been thinking the same thing. And if we don't figure out who's behind this, we might be facing a bigger fight than we're ready for. Ryan's eyes narrowed and he nodded. All right, let's focus. We need to get ahead of this before it blows up in our faces. We spent the next few hours putting together a plan. I needed to know who was targeting me, and I needed to do it fast. Ryan suggested we start by digging deeper into Emma's connections, anyone who could have had a motive to come after me after everything had unfolded. I hated the idea of even thinking about her again, but it was the only way to uncover the truth. We started by tracking down every lead we could find. Ryan had some contacts in the underground world of private investigators and information brokers. He made a few calls, and within hours we had a list of potential suspects, people who could have access to the kind of information that was being used against me. As I sifted through the list, one name stood out. Brad. I had all but forgotten about him. The cheating asshole who had played a part in everything that had gone down. But now, looking at the details surrounding him, I realized that he wasn't just a random player in this mess. He had his own tangled web of connections, people who would be more than happy to make my life hell. Brad? Ryan asked, leaning over my shoulder as I pulled up the files. You think he's involved? I don't know, I said, tapping my fingers on the table. But it's worth looking into. He's not just some guy Emma slept with. He's got his own history of trouble, and if he's somehow tied into this, we need to know. Ryan agreed, and we dug deeper into Brad's background. The more we uncovered, the more we realized how much we didn't know about him. He wasn't just a businessman with a dirty secret, he was connected to some shady individuals, people who had the means to ruin lives without leaving a trace. It became clear that Brad had more to lose than just his reputation. We continued our investigation, following the trail wherever it led. But as the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. It wasn't just the unease from the messages, it was the way people around me seemed to be acting differently. It was subtle, like someone was pulling strings behind the scenes, orchestrating a game I didn't fully understand yet. Then, one evening, I received another message. Unknown, you're playing with fire, Ethan. If you think you're safe, you're wrong. This is bigger than you. The message was chilling, not just because of the words, but because of the timing. I had been so focused on Brad and his connections, I had forgotten about the possibility that there were others in play, people who were pulling the strings from the shadows. Ryan and I met up again that night, more determined than ever to get to the bottom of this. We need to move faster, I said, frustration creeping into my voice. We've got too many unknowns and I feel like we're running out of time. Ryan nodded, his jaw tight. I know. But we're getting closer. We just need to keep our heads down and stay ahead of whoever's out there. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window. The city was alive, buzzing with energy, but it felt like I was the only one in it. Everyone else was moving through life without a care while I was stuck in the middle of a war I didn't even understand. The next morning, I woke up to a phone call from Calloway. His voice was grave. We've got a problem, he said, his tone serious. It's Emma. She's been making calls. Trying to spread rumors about you. And I've got word that Brad's been digging into your finances. My heart sank. It was happening. The storm was closing in. The tension in the air thickened as I hung up the phone with Calloway. My instincts told me that things were only going to get worse from here. Emma had been planning something, I could feel it in my bones. And Brad? He wasn't just some pathetic pawn anymore, he was a player too. A key part of whatever scheme they were pulling together. I stood in the middle of my living room, staring out the window. The sunlight streaming through the glass did little to lift the weight pressing on my chest. My life had become a series of chess moves, each one more dangerous than the last. And every time I thought I was a step ahead, someone pushed me 2 steps back. Ryan's voice cut through the silence. We need to take the gloves off. If we keep playing this game with them, we're going to lose. I turned to face him, my hands clenched into fists. I know. But what the hell do we do now? They've got everything. The smear campaign, the threats. Brad's been digging into my finances. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep this up. Ryan's eyes were hard, his jaw set. He wasn't just worried about me anymore. He was invested in this fight, too. We play their game, but we do it better. We flip the script on them. How? I asked, the question sounding more defeated than I intended. We've got the evidence, Ryan said, his tone sharp. We've got the footage. Now we make sure it's seen by the right people. Not just Emma's boss or her family, but the people who can ruin her. I frowned, feeling the bitterness in my throat. I had no intention of going after Emma, not unless I absolutely had to. But this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about taking control of the narrative, about showing everyone who was really in the wrong. I don't want to go nuclear, Ryan, I muttered, staring at the floor. I don't want to destroy her. But I don't know what choice we have. Then don't. Let her destroy herself, Ryan replied. You don't have to be the one pulling the trigger. But you can make sure everyone knows what she did. I could feel the truth in his words. Emma had already done enough damage. It was time to let her face the consequences of her own actions. We spent the next few days preparing. Ryan made more calls, reaching out to people in the circles Emma had been a part of. We had to make sure that the right people knew the truth, and we had to do it in a way that left no room for doubt. If I played my cards right, Emma wouldn't be able to worm her way out of this. But there was still the looming threat of Brad. He was the wild card in this whole mess. He might have been Emma's partner in crime, but he was also a loose cannon. I wasn't sure what his next move would be, but I had to assume that he'd do whatever it took to protect his own skin. After all, he had just as much to lose as she did. I couldn't help but feel like I was being toyed with. Someone was pulling the strings and I didn't know who. I couldn't trust anyone, and that made me feel more isolated than ever. Every time I thought I was getting close to the truth, the ground seemed to shift beneath me. That night, I received a message that set my nerves on edge. Unknown, you're not the only one playing a dangerous game. Watch your back. My blood ran cold. Whoever was behind this knew more than they should. They weren't just trying to destroy me, they were trying to scare me. And it was working. I looked at Ryan, who had been sitting across from me, silently watching me read the message. You think this is a warning? I asked, my voice low. Ryan's eyes narrowed. It's a threat. Whoever's doing this isn't messing around anymore. They're coming for you. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of those words settle like lead in my stomach. I had already been pushed to the edge. Now, it felt like I was standing at the precipice, looking down into a dark abyss with no way out. We have to act fast, I said, my voice firm. I don't know who's behind this, but I'm done being reactive. I'm taking control. Ryan gave me a sharp nod. That's the spirit. But we have to be careful. Whoever's been working against you is smart. They're playing the long game. I took a deep breath, then reached for my phone. Then I guess it's time I start playing smarter. The first move was to take the fight to Emma's doorstep. I didn't want to drag this out any longer, but I needed to make sure that everything I had, the evidence, the truth, was out in the open. I couldn't afford to let her and Brad control the narrative any longer. It was time to turn the tables. I reached out to Calloway again, telling him that we were ready to move forward. He was hesitant at first, but once I explained my plan, he was on board. We weren't going to waste any more time trying to play nice. It was all or nothing now. The following morning, I sent Emma a message. Ethan, we need to meet. Today. Her response came quickly. Emma, what now? You think I'll just roll over? I smirked at the screen. She hadn't learned a damn thing. Ethan, you'll see. She agreed to meet. I could feel her arrogance through the text, her belief that she still held all the cards. But I knew better. She had no idea what was coming. The day had arrived. The last move. I was done playing this endless game of cat and mouse with Emma. This time, it wasn't just about the video or the evidence. It wasn't about the divorce either. It was about making her realize the consequences of her actions and making sure she couldn't ever hurt anyone like this again. Ryan and I sat in my car, the engine running, the parking lot outside Emma's office looming ahead of us. I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me, her lies, her betrayal, the weight of my own anger, but this time it was different. This time I was in control. I had nothing to lose. You ready for this? Ryan asked, breaking the silence. I looked at him, a small, grim smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. You have no idea how ready I am. He chuckled darkly. Let's just make sure we don't screw this up yet. I nodded, but in my gut I knew this was the right thing. This was how it had to end. We got out of the car, walking toward the building like we were on a mission. Every step felt calculated, deliberate. I wasn't the man who had walked into that house weeks ago, broken, betrayed, unsure. No, I was someone else now. Someone with a purpose. Someone who wasn't afraid to burn it all down. I texted Emma one last time before we entered the building. Ethan, I'm here. Let's finish this. The response came almost instantly. Emma, you think you can intimidate me? You've already lost. I laughed bitterly, slipping my phone into my pocket. She still didn't get it. She had no idea what was about to hit her. Ryan and I stepped inside, and the receptionist gave us a polite but wary smile. She knew exactly who I was. Emma's reputation had spread fast around here, and I wasn't the only one who had suffered the consequences of her actions. But this wasn't about me anymore. This was about making her face the destruction she'd caused. Is Emma in? I asked, my voice steady but cold. The receptionist hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She's in her office. Would you like me to let her know you're here? I smiled, a tight, controlled smile. No need. We'll take it from here. Ryan shot me a quick glance, his expression unreadable. We moved toward the elevator. As the doors closed behind us, I felt my pulse quicken. I was on the edge now. One wrong move and everything could go south. But I didn't care anymore. I wasn't going to let her have the last word. When the elevator doors opened, I took a deep breath. Emma's office was just down the hall. The receptionist had warned Emma we were here. The fact that she hadn't come out to greet us or even respond only made it worse. I could practically feel her trembling behind those walls, her carefully constructed facade crumbling under the weight of everything she'd done. Ryan stopped me before I knocked on the door. Remember, Ethan? You're not here to gloat. We've got one shot at this. If you go in there all guns blazing, she'll find a way to turn it around on you. I nodded, biting back the urge to let all my anger spill out. This was it. The last confrontation. I couldn't screw it up. I knocked. A second later, the door swung open and there she was. Emma. Her face was pale, her hair messier than usual, her eyes wide with panic. She was a shell of the woman I once knew. She looked almost fragile, almost pathetic. What the hell are you doing here? She demanded, her voice sharp, but there was something thin and trembling in it, like she knew she was in trouble. Like she knew this was the end. I took a step forward, my eyes never leaving hers. You know exactly why I'm here, Emma. This ends today. Her gaze flickered toward Ryan, then back to me. You're out of your mind. You have no right to come here and do this. You've already destroyed everything. What more do you want? I stepped into the office, pushing past her without waiting for an invitation. You really think you can play the victim now? I scoffed. You tried to ruin me. You destroyed everything we had, and now you want to act like you've been the one wronged. Emma took a step back, almost like she was shrinking into herself. Please. Ethan, this isn't what it looks like, she pleaded, her voice shaking. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. Cut the crap. It's exactly what it looks like. You cheated, you lied, and you tried to ruin me. And I'm not going to let you get away with it. She swallowed hard, but she didn't back down. You're going to regret this. You don't know who you're dealing with. I raised an eyebrow, letting her words hang in the air. Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. A liar. A cheater. Someone who thought they could control everything. But you're not in control anymore, Emma. Her lips trembled, and for a moment I thought she might break down. But she didn't. Instead, she stood taller, gathering her composure. You think you've won, don't you? She said, her voice low. You think you've got all the power now. But I'll make sure you regret this. I met her gaze, unwavering. You're done. The people you've lied to, the people you've betrayed, they'll know the truth. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. Ryan stepped forward, his arms crossed. This is your last chance, Emma. You can walk away with your dignity intact, or you can keep pushing and lose everything. She glared at us, her face turning red with rage. But the fear in her eyes couldn't be hidden. She knew she was done. I turned on my heel, heading toward the door. We'll be seeing you, Emma. As I stepped into the hallway, I could feel the weight of everything lifting. I'd played the game. And I had won. Emma didn't come around again. It was as though she had disappeared into thin air, leaving behind nothing but the wreckage of the life we'd built together. I'd like to say I felt relief, but it was something far colder. In the months that followed, I kept expecting the inevitable twist, the lawsuit, some hidden surprise, a sudden shift in the tides, but nothing came. It's strange, really. You spend so long fighting for something, even when you know deep down it's over. But once it's gone, there's a strange kind of peace. Not a happiness, not a joy, just the stillness of knowing that the war is over and you've come out standing. I thought about Emma, sure. There were moments when I wondered how she was managing, how she was feeling now that her life was in ruins. I even wondered if she had any remorse, any hint of regret, but I knew deep down Emma wasn't the type to apologize. She was too busy fighting to notice the devastation she had caused. As the months passed, I focused on what really mattered, myself. The divorce was final. The house was mine. The business was flourishing thanks to Ryan's support and advice, which was more than just professional at this point. He had become family in ways I hadn't realized I needed. But the world didn't stop for Emma, and it certainly didn't stop for me. The change, while profound, was almost imperceptible. I adjusted to life without her in ways that surprised even me. The first few weeks after she left were the hardest, waking up alone, eating alone, driving alone, but it got easier. The silence wasn't so oppressive anymore. It became something I welcomed, something I relished. I could hear my own thoughts again. The biggest change came from within. I wasn't the same person I was before all of this. The old Ethan, the one who put up with lies and manipulation, who cowered when things went wrong, was gone. And in his place was someone sharper, more aware of his own worth. I wasn't just a victim in all of this, I was someone who had fought back, who had reclaimed his dignity. And that made all the difference. Then one day, months after the dust had settled, Ryan and I went for drinks again. It was one of those rare moments where we could sit down and talk about something other than business or the fallout from Emma's chaos. Ryan leaned back, looking at me with that familiar grin. You ever think about what you learned from all this? I smiled, taking a long drink. I learned that people will do anything to keep you down when they're afraid of losing control. But the real trick is learning how to not let them. Damn right, he said, raising his glass. And I learned that it's not worth it, I continued, staring down into my drink, letting the words roll off my tongue like they'd been sitting there for months. It's not worth giving everything for someone who's never going to appreciate it. I used to think that love was about sacrifice, about giving your all. But now I know it's about finding someone who's willing to give as much as you are. He nodded. It's a good lesson, man. Real good. We fell into a comfortable silence, the kind you only get after years of friendship and shared experiences. It wasn't an awkward silence. It was the kind of silence that made you appreciate the simplicity of being around someone who understood you. In the end, that was what I had left, the people who mattered. Ryan, who had been with me from the start, supporting me, making sure I didn't lose myself in the wreckage. And a newfound sense of self, something I'd never thought I'd find after the destruction Emma had left in her wake. As for Emma, well, I never heard from her again after that final encounter. Her world had fallen apart, but she didn't even try to crawl her way back. Maybe she was too proud. Maybe she knew there was nothing left for her. Whatever the case, it didn't matter. I had no desire to track her down, no need to know what became of her. She was just a ghost now, a shadow of the past that had no place in my future. I'd moved on. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control again. The future was mine. It always had been. No more distractions. No more games. Just me. And the life I was going to build.